Hi, I'm Dr. Faisel Syed. Welcome to another episode of Faisel and Friends. We're here because we believe everyone deserves access to quality primary care, and ChenMed needs physicians to take care of them. Exciting things are happening at Faisel and Friends this year. Starting next month, we will no longer be going live on social media, but don't worry, you will find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Episodes will be available every Thursday. Tonight's topic is the role of pulmonology in primary care. My co-host and moderator of the chat is Dr. Dan Mccarter. Welcome, Dr. Dan. How are you doing tonight?
Good. It's great to be with you again, Faisel.
It's great to be back. Thank you, Dr. Dan, for covering while I was out ill. I thought for sure it was COVID, but we tested twice and came up negative.
Well, and you covered for me last week, and I was out with COVID, so
But you really
I really had it. Yes.
I think it's fitting. I think it's fitting for us to have tonight's topic. I'm really excited about tonight's topic, and also a series we'll be doing with the role of specialists in primary care, especially in the full risk model. So, without further ado, let us welcome our National Director of Pulmonology, Dr. Nina Mullenen. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you tonight. And I'm glad you're both are feeling well. No cough, no sneeze.
I know. I mean, these last couple of weeks. I mean, we've been talking about getting back out again, and over the summer we were planning on doing a 27-city primary care crusade, restoring the sacred doctor-patient relationship, and then this Delta happened.
Oh my God.
Squashed that plan, and we started planning again to get back out again out in person, and after Thanksgiving we had this variant, and so it's been kind of slowing us down. Hopefully this year is going to be the year that we can start getting back out again.
Looking forward to it. We can't wait to travel again and
Yes.
share the love.
You know, Nina, we're so happy. First of all, I'm so happy to finally connect with you. And it kind of reminded me of what it used to be like in residency in the doctor's lounge when we had our pre-show just before we went live. That's the way it used to be like. Doctors just getting together, discussing cases, just being chummy, the formality of writing a formal consult, especially for the gray areas. You didn't see that before the way that you're seeing it these days. But before we get into all that, I wanted to hear about your story. You know, everyone has a wonderful story, especially of how we come to deciding our field and how we get to where we are in our lives as physicians. So I'd love to hear a little bit of your background.
Sure. Well, it's a long story, and I am going to cut it short and summarize really where I came from. Actually, I would have never thought in a million years that I was going to end up in the United States speaking English and practicing interventional pulmonology. You would have asked me when I was 10 years old. I'm like, oh, I wanted to be a pilot. Well, here we go. So, long story short, ultimately grew up in Morocco. I was born and raised in Morocco, and both my parents are physicians, as well as my uncle. And one is a gynecologist and ophthalmologist. But ultimately, even though they were specialists, really, it was funny. I never thought about it that way. They actually were trained by having a very strong internal medicine background. And ultimately, because I went to a French system, I had to actually transition from a Moroccan medical school to a French medical school that was free. I couldn't go to a Moroccan medical school because I didn't have a Moroccan high school grad diploma. And so I trained in France, in Rouen, Normandy. And then after that, politics, social medicine actually was initiated at that time, and they limited the amount of foreign nationals to 10% of a class, which pushed me to continue in Spain. And ultimately, I was worried when I ended up in Madrid that I was going to find myself in the same situation as I was in France if they changed the government again. I'm like, okay, so I'll start. I was supposed to start my clinicals in France. And I'm like, in 2 years, it's going to be time for my internship. What's going to happen? And that's when I started looking into coming to the United States. Ended up in the US. And that's how I embarked into learning English in 1998, went to Juniata College, and that was the pipeline for PCOM, Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, then internal medicine at Chester, ultimately Pulm Critical Care, at Hahnemann, which is no more,
I
which
know, unbelievable.
oh my gosh, that's a whole other, that's what's wrong with medicine today, right?
Yes.
Phenomenal professors, amazing teaching and teachers. I mean, my pulmonary mentors cried whenever they found out that that was it. I mean, there was always in the background the risk that it was going to be it. But what a loss for the city. What a loss for those that can't afford care.
Yes.
And ultimately, that's where I met my first mentor, Dr. Hogue, who actually guided me in the world of cystic fibrosis. And that's where I was first introduced to really a team approach, a multidisciplinary approach that does what we can do best for the patient, not for the system. Ultimately, met with the interventional pulmonologist that made me where I am right now, Dr. Lund, and I ended up at CTCA where I did my interventional pulmonology fellowship, one of the firsts. And unfortunately, because of medicine again, CTCA closed in Philadelphia. And phenomenal physicians had to find their ways again into a very complex, convoluted system and healthcare system. But that's my journey in my my learning part. But how did I come about becoming an interventional pulmonologist? That was personal, and also a passion and a calling. Personal because I've lost so many family members to lung cancer. My cousin, at 25, small cell carcinoma with no access, and also the stigma of not wanting to speak about lung cancer because he was a smoker. My uncle, who also had a small cell carcinoma and was ashamed of it, 56, and ultimately my aunt at age 72 because there was no access. Um, and really, you would think that that was the story of a third world country and only a third world country. Well, to my surprise and sadness, I realized that west of Pittsburgh and east of California is the wild, wild west. And if
Yes.
you actually have a lung lesion, good luck. And so I made it a mission to be able to increase awareness for lung carcinoma, early detection, because it's curable if it's detected early, but more importantly, be able to guide those that really were not aware of what we have from a clinical background, doctors and physicians, as well as patients. And that's how my patient became to be pulmonary and more specifically lung carcinoma and interventional pulmonology.
Wow. Your story is absolutely unbelievable. I cannot even imagine moving from multiple countries. I mean, moving from one state to another state is such a big deal. But to move from Morocco to France to Spain and then moving to the United States and then having to learn all the languages and all the cultures and all the systems and being told that you can't pursue this particular field because there's a cutoff of how many foreign graduates or how many I mean that is just something that is just so foreign, so unbelievable, an incredibly inspiring story with your academic journey. And then what you said about the similarities with American healthcare access, with what many Americans have to deal with limited access to medical care, especially if they have no insurance or if they have high deductibles and they can't afford their copays and deductibles. Really, when you look at the different systems, and like American healthcare system is like multiple systems. But for the people who don't have insurance, what's the difference between what many in the third world struggle with little to no system there, compared to what we have here? I mean, at least here, people have access. If they have an emergency, they can go to the emergency room and they have to be seen. But really, from what you're talking about, with being able to address something like an early small cell carcinoma, they don't have access. Like you said, good luck.
Exactly. I mean, it's the bottlenecking that's happening right now in medicine. And that's why it is absolutely crucial and important to help and guide primary care physicians because they're the captains of the boat. And when I initiated programs for lung carcinoma and lung nodule clinics that everybody wants to have now in their healthcare system because they see it as the ability to get all these lung nodule consults. The goal of having a lung nodule clinic is to be able to detect those that needs care, not the ones that are going to bring you the money. But that's where the disconnect is. And that's why, I mean, when you sit down across the table, and that's why I went and got my MBA, to be able to actually be allowed at that table.